John Cavallero. I am the parts and service manager for the company. We're going to talk today, especially with the things that are going on out in the world today, that would be a great time to do some preventative maintenance on your equipment. We're talking concrete grinders, as in like the 800 Classic from HTC, along with the PG820 from Husqvarna. There's certain things you can do to prevent, but there's also things that you're going to need to do in the future to keep your machine up and running. We're going to talk about that through this week. We'll be coming back. If you have some questions, let's say something that you feel something's getting ready to happen with your piece of equipment, call me and we could do a live chat with that too. One thing you can check, especially on an HTC, is belts are probably the biggest issue. You have two belts on an HTC 800, you have two belts on a 500. The larger belt is on the inside of the turntable. The smaller belt runs the turntable. The larger belt will run your drive heads, which are these are your drive heads. If you want to check your inner belt, take two of the heads and try to turn them towards each other. You see how they turn simultaneously, but if you're trying to turn them inward, that tells you that that belt is strong, but if the head slip, it tells you your belt's wore. And when you put pressure on it, as far as under a load when it's grinding on the concrete, that's where your load's going to come in and your belt's going to slip. Unlike the Husqvarna PG820 has one belt. The heads are driven by the belt, and the turntable is driven by this chain ring that's on the inside. One of the maintenance things that you need to do on that, this sprocket will ride inside the double chain, as so. If that double chain gets built up with concrete dust and mortar, it's going to force this shaft outward and you're going to snap the shaft off in your gearbox, and you don't want that. There is an inspection plate right here with two screws that you can take off and you can do a preventative maintenance check. Take that plate off, blow that out the best you can. If it's not coming out, then you're going to need to pull the back motor on here and go down through there and clean that chain drive out. Some of the things that go wrong with your PG820, if your machine is starting to run from you or hard to handle, this spring is up underneath here. They call it a steel spring. They'll get cracks in here. If that gets cracked, it's going to run all over the place on you. This silicone ring is underneath that spring, gives you the flexibility. The other common thing that breaks is your cap locks that are right here, here, here. Each head will have three of those. It's held on by a 6mm little bolt. Those will hold your plates on. If those are loose, your plate's going to wobble as you grind. Those are just some quick tips on your bigger grinders. As you walk with me, this whole section here is dedicated to Husqvarna parts for grinders. The next section is dedicated to HTC grinders. As you can see, we know that there's all different kinds of grinders within each manufacturer, but we try to use the most common ones, and that's what we try to keep you up and running with. Next two sections are Ermators for vacuums. One of the most common vacuums is an S26. As you can see right here, very simple vacuum, but very effective. The vacuum has a canister filter that's inside called a conical. The conical filter is a pre-filter to this unit. In the back, you have two HEPA filters in these canisters. The HEPA filters, you should see no debris inside your HEPA filter. If there is debris in there, then your pre-filter is contaminated, broke, whatever, wore out. Those are two things there that you're going to want to keep an eye on. If your filters are getting clogged, then your motors are going to work overtime. They're going to work harder to do their job. And when that happens, the switch will pop, and that serves as a breaker, a 115-volt breaker. If that pops, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to operate. To change the switch out is pretty simple, but you want to stop that switch from breaking, so keep your filters clean. And the way you will clean them, you will take this plug out, you'll take your hose out that hooks up into here, put the plug in, and you're going to hit this lever 3 to 4 times about every 10 to 15 minutes of grinding and vacuuming. It's a very simple unit to work on. You've only got 3 electrical components, which would be your switch that I just showed you. You have 2 motors, and then you have a little resistor that is a soft start that will absorb all the inrush current of your voltage as your motors get up to speed.
You have a question. How often do you need to change your filters?
Your filter should be changed. It all depends on your hours, okay? If But what the factory says is that the HEPA filter should last twice as long as the conical filter. So let's say you use it every day. You know how you've treated your filter. If you clean it regularly, and at the end of the day, maybe even during the day, take the conical filter out and tap it on the ground to physically clean it. There is no set time. It's all hours and how abusive you are to your vacuum. But if you're going to replace it, let's say yearly, you're going to replace the HEPA filters once a year, and you're going to replace your conical filter twice a year. Moving on, CPS is our next piece of equipment. We have propane regulators. We have just about everything you need to maintain them. With CPS and a combustible engine, you must change the oil properly. About every 50 hours is what they suggest that you change the oil in these units. If you buy a new unit, you should change it after the first 8 hours of usage. Means that there could be metal flakes down inside the engine block that you're going to need to get out. On down, we also, in conclusion, tenant parts. There's a lot of different auto scrubbers, but we try to stock the common ones so we can keep you up and running. Edco, another good heavy-duty piece of equipment for grinding. We use a lot of the small ones for their smaller companies. The TL9 is one of my favorites. It's a 9-inch direct drive, no belts, no gears, nothing. It's directly connected to the shaft, so there is no slippage in it. It's a good little grinder. And last but not least, Hippos. Wanted to let you know that they have discontinued the older units as far as the motors. They've increased the torque and they've increased the speed on them to accommodate for the 6-bag units that are now into the Mega Hippos. So if you don't want to switch your motors, you're happy with them, we have 3 of the earlier model, we have 2 of the second model, and then now we're switching to the 3-speed unit. If there's any questions, feel free to call. You can call me direct at 317-416-0432. Thanks for joining.
And every day.
And we will be doing this frequently through this week, taking one piece of equipment, one manufacturer, and breaking it down a little bit more. So if you have questions about your particular unit that you own, let me know.
US saws.
And US saws, the poly pumps, that's another thing Wendy wanted me to elaborate on. Poly pumps are a very high maintenance piece of equipment. You have to clean them properly. People frequently get the pump portion mixed up with the motor portion. The motors are a direct drive permanent magnet motor. You're not going to burn those motors up. They will snap your shafts off in your pumps. We have a full line of parts for US Saw on the poly pumps and the dust buddies and JS 130s. Thank you very much for joining. We'll see you soon.